morning, it's day 31 of our Lent readings for 2021, and today we've reached the shortest book of the Old Testament, the book of Obadiah. Now, we know nothing other than his name. It says at the beginning, the prophecy of Obadiah. His name means servant of the Lord, so it could be a title rather than a name, but Obadiah is not an unusual name in Scripture, and there are several characters in the Old Testament called Obadiah, so we'll assume that is his name. And the focus of his prophecy is the nation of Edom. Now that takes us back to Genesis. You remember in Genesis, Abraham had a son, Isaac, who had twin boys, Jacob and Esau. Well, those boys would go on to get given new names. Jacob would be called Israel and Esau would be called Edom. And those names were taken on by the descendants. So we have the nation of Israel and the nation of Edom. You also remember in that story how Jacob stole Esau's birthright, and there was animosity between the two brothers. Well, that animosity carried on into their descendants as well. There was constant issues between Israel and Edom. When Israel came out of Egypt in the Exodus, Edom opposed them as they travelled through the wilderness. When David became king, he conquered Edom, and that continued under Solomon's reign. But then under the reigns of Jehoshaphat and Jehoram, Edom rebelled. You could read a bit about that in 2 Chronicles 21, verses 8 to 10. Edom rebelled and became independent, and that continued to be an animosity between the two nations. Obadiah's message for Edom is for when Babylon have conquered Jerusalem. When Babylon conquered Jerusalem and took some of the Judah into exile, Edom stood by and gloated, and then went into the city and did some looting. They didn't help. And Obadiah's message is, God has seen this. You didn't help your brother. You stood by, and God has judged you along with all Israel's enemies. That's the message of Obadiah. Now it's only one chapter, but it's still got 21 verses in that, so it'll be a bit long to read if we're going to keep to these short readings. So I'm going to read from verse 11 about the judgment on Edom, because they gloated on the day of Judah's disaster. So from verse 11. On the day you stood aloof, while strangers carried off his wealth and foreigners entered his gates, and cast lots for Jerusalem, you were like one of them. You should not gloat over your brother in the day of his misfortune, nor rejoice over the people of Judah in the day of their destruction, nor boast so much in the day of their trouble. You should not march through the gates of my people in the day of their disaster, nor gloat over them in their calamity in the day of their disaster, nor seize their wealth in the day of their disaster. You should not wait at the crossroads to cut down their fugitives, nor hand over their survivors in the day of their trouble. The day of the Lord is near for all nations. As you have done, it will be done to you. Your deeds will return upon your own head. Just as you drank on my holy hill, so all the nations will drink continually. They will drink and be as if they had never been. But on Mount Zion will be deliverance. It will be holy, and Jacob will possess his inheritance. Jacob will be a fire, and Joseph a flame. Esau will be stubble, and they will set him on fire and destroy him. There will be no survivors from Esau. The Lord has spoken. People from the Negev will occupy the mountains of Esau, and the people from the foothills will possess the land of the Philistines. You will occupy the fields of Ephraim and Samaria, and Benjamin will possess Gilead. This company of Israelites, exiles, who are in Canaan will possess the land as far as Zarephath. The exiles from Jerusalem who are in Sepharad will possess the towns of the Negev. Deliverers will go up on Mount Zion to govern the mountains of Esau, and the kingdom will be the Lord's. I think the warning here is that don't allow issues of the past to go unresolved or unreconciled. Because if you leave them, those issues may well come back to haunt you later. So let me urge you, if there's an issue you have with a brother or sister, whether spiritually speaking in the church or literally speaking in your own family, if at all possible, seek reconciliation. Don't allow it to develop to become an issue later on. Until next time, have a blessed